Each speaker will have 15 to 30 minutes to present the respective topics. Following that, the Regional Director of the Department of Budget and Management will provide a 5-minute panel reaction. Following the panel reaction, we shall continue directly to an open forum, which will be probably take us an hour. No? So at this juncture, let us call first our first speaker, Doc Nassef Manabilang Adiong. Doc?
Assalamu alaikum to everyone and good morning. I just have to take this off so I can breathe properly while I'm speaking. And thank you for the invitation, Minister Najib Sinarimbo, for this glorious Governance Day as we celebrate the foundation of the Bangsamoro government. And I listened attentively while you speak about Islamic leadership, which is very in toto with the one that we discussed yesterday about the ethics of Islamic leadership. And I remember that there were many historical figures and also prominent Muslim thinkers. When we think of moral governance, we have to think about what are the contexts of the Bangsamoro as uprooted and how to describe and also how to manifest what we call and what do we mean by moral governance based on Bangsamoro social, cultural, and political upheavals. Aside from that, what I mean is that we need to decolonize the concept. We all know that for the past decades, until the establishment of the Republic of the Philippines, when we speak of the post-colonial elites who established the Republic, it has been in total and very comprehensive that the adoption and accommodation of post-colonial characteristics of the state, of the way we establish a nation state that is precluded from the European empiricisms on how they think of what should be the proper polity configuration in their own societies. So this political configuration that is coming from Europe that was implanted to non-European societies became the preponderating political configuration that has been adopted in all post-colonial societies, including the Philippines. That's the reason why most of our heroes, national heroes, the Ilustrados, have obtained their education from Europe, and what they have learned there, we adapted it even until the establishment of Malolo's constitution, the crafting of these constitutions were through and through influenced by coloniality. So there are binary between post-coloniality and decoloniality on how to construct the ideas such as moral governance. So we need to digress from Western canons. We all know that since the formative years of our education, we have been influenced by one I call hegemonic educational system that is looking at Western references and materials, and part of that is the pedagogy that uprooted from the West. So we need to digress from these canons, and I think it's about time that we also build our own canons in the Philippines, very much emphasizing the canons that is contextualized as Bangsamoro education. So we need to provide a knowledge production that is I would say, influenced by our own lived realities, the normative lived realities that we have, and social realities. So there are many Muslim thinkers who actually provided literature in terms of what should be the traits of a leader, not only for the Muslims, because there are preponderating, I would say, mutual dialogue, not only between Muslims, but also with Christians and the Jews. As I know, I also stated this one in some of my classes, that even before when the Hellenistic philosophy was not even being considered, recognized by European kingdoms at that time in the Middle Ages, or what they call medieval ages, but it was a time when what we call golden age of Islam, or Islamic civilizations from 9th to 13th century, before the ransack of the Baghdad by the Mongols. So there were many destructions at the time, especially many thousands of libraries that have been destroyed. And there were also accounts in the historical documents where books that were burned became bridges. So it's the reason why in the rivers of Tigris and Euphrates it became black with ink, because it coming from the ink of those burned books that were destroyed by the Mongols as they go along from one mobility area location to another mobility. So that's how many of the knowledge that were destroyed. But I think that the Europeans should also recognize that from Crusaders and also from the Reconquistadores, when they reconquest Al-Andalusia, southern part of Spain, it became the legacy for the Renaissance and Enlightenment age of Europe that they have manifested because of the legacies brought down by the Muslims or the Islamic civilization. So when we think of this Islamic leadership in terms of the governmental system that we are now looking and into exploring, there are many Muslim thinkers such as Al-Farabi, the virtuous city-states. He said that the most virtuous leader is a combination of a philosopher-king, meaning that it has the traits of a philosopher using the methodology of rationality when he will try to access truths from the Quran and Sunnah, and also a combination with the characteristic of a prophet, of a prophethood, which is being charismatic. And that is for him is the most, I think, ideal for him, the most virtuous leader that the Muslim civilization can account for and can actually acquire for. And that is somehow similar to Plato's Republic. That's the reason why when we speak of the first teacher in the Muslim world, they speak of Aristotle. The second teacher is, of course, Al-Farabi. And he is being referred as Neoplatonic scholar. And of course, one of the most prominent scholars in the Sunni world is Al-Mawardi. In his book, The Ordinances of Government, he stated the characteristic, what should be the criteria of selecting a leader. We all know that even the Prophet, may peace be upon him, had all the traits, whether executive, legislative, and judiciary, because he is the leader of the first ummah, of the first community. Al-Mawardi provided quite very controversial characteristic of one leader. And one of the criterion that he extrapolate is that a Muslim leader should be coming from or originating from the Quraysh tribe, which is the Quraysh, the tribe of the Prophet. I don't want to call it tribe because it's very Orientalistic, it's very marginal, it marginalizes, discriminatory even, to say the least, of how Orientalist scholars have depicted terminologies when they refer and also acknowledge non-European or non-American and even non-Western societies. So that's a very controversial criterion. Among all of these Muslim thinkers, I can tell you that the father of sociology, psychology, and many of social sciences is Ibn Khaldun. In his Muqaddimah or Prolegomena, he actually stated the rise and fall of Muslim civilizations, the characteristics of an Islamic leader, what should be the social normative aspects of a governance system. So there are, I think, preponderating differences between when we speak of theoretical and praxis. Although the theories guide the praxis of itself provide the evidentiary or the evidence to support the theories. So they go hand in hand when we speak of this, whether there is a widening gap between theory and praxis. And aside from that, it's very important that we acknowledge the leadership of the Prophet as, I think, the sine qua non of all types of leadership because of the Medina Charter or Constitution of Medina or the Constitution of Yathrib. It's the first name before it became Medina, the city of light, Yathrib. So when Jews and Christians, or especially the Jewish communities, were at having disputes, conflicts among themselves. They've heard the name Prophet Muhammad, and they see that the characteristics of Prophet is very well endowed when it comes to settling disputes. So they invited the Prophet, and also it's very appropriate for during the time because the early Muslim communities were being persecuted by the ruling elites in Mecca, so they have to escape and seek refuge. And with the invitation of the Jewish leaders and Christians, and which he accepted the invitation and going to Yathrib in Medina, they formed a constitution. It's like the first human documented constitution, legal document signed by all community leaders, including by the Prophet, by the Jewish leaders and the Sabians and Christians. So even though it was a very short-lived legal document that was ratified by among those parties, it is recognized as the first human constitution in the world, and I think we can also emulate and even accommodate such principles as stated in the Madina Charter. So when I speak of moral governance, we had to contextualize what are the preponderating principles of moral governance that is, I think, contextualized based on the sociocultural normative realities of the Bangsamoro people. And also considered the mantra of the MILF leadership and also of the Bangsamoro government, and also the pronouncements of the chief minister. So when I did my study, this is now published. These principles of moral governance in the Bangsamoro has already been published by MSU Press, and I forgot the second joint press, but it is now accessible in the PRLS website, prls.org. You can just access and download that article that we published together with Doc Putrit Diampuan. So there were 5 theorems that I think of that would encapsulate the pronouncements of the chief minister, the study done by the Bangsamoro, only 5 minutes, my goodness. The study done by the Development Academy of Bangsamoro, the study done, the research also done by the MILG and other ministries as well. So I concluded that there might be some 5 principles that would encapsulate, or I would shall call general theorems or universal theorems that is not only applicable and suitable to the Muslims, but it's also applicable and suitable for non-Moro, Moro indigenous peoples, also for the Christians as well, as recognized as inhabitants of the Bangsamoro region. These 5 theorems are faith, Aqidah, freedom, Ikhtiyar, moral authority, common good, and also social ethics. In the faith, I said here that it goes hand in hand with Sharia. When I speak of Sharia, it's not reducible to law or legal praxis. Sharia, of course, the etymological definition of Sharia is a path down to the watering hole. It's like a path of yourselves as you perform your own jihad, your struggles, to obtain a utopic principles of life. And that is somehow the etymological Arab definition. But when we speak of Sharia, it has 3 categories. First, of course, is Aqidah, or the belief in the oneness of God and Tawheed, the belief in angels, and also have fiqh, jurisprudence, those, fatwas, edict being implemented by ulamas in Islamic jurisprudence, and also, of course, akal, or social relations, good relations between husband and wife, good relations between parents and children, among others. So that's what I speak when I speak of Sharia. It's a interpreted and reinterpreted principles of morality that is evolving and that is reliant to the exigencies of changing times. And this goes in hand with Sharia, and it's not enough to believe in what we call transcendence of an unimaginable divinity, but without the mind and body expressing faith through loyalty, through allegiance and unfettered submission, I think faith won't be materialized onto yourselves. So this is also part of the, I think, the operationalizations, probably in hiring HR resources, such as loyalty, allegiance, and unfettered submission. And also, of course, within this principle of faith or theory of faith, we have the two principles of sustenance, or what we call rububiyya, and purification, or tazkiyah. And in accordance, when we look at the Bangsamoro Organic Law, at the first sentences in the preamble, faith is actually included there. That faith is enshrined in the preamble of the Bangsamoro Organic Law, such as that systems are reflective of their system of life as prescribed by their faith. And of course, the second theorem is freedom, or ikhtiyar. And when I mean about freedom, is that freedom is not based on what we call, free will, but it is based upon the understanding that it is based on free choice. What is good and from what is also better. And this that we need to arrive in terms of the when we think about honesty, just, correctness, and reasonable. And I think in one of the madhabs at the time, when the Abbasids came into power, they relegated that the state official religion is Mutazilites, or the Mutazilis. And the methodology and also understanding of the Mutazilis upon understanding the Quran and Sunnah is through and through rationality, or reason. And this freedom, or ikhtiyar, is actually prescribed in the Bangsamoro Organic Law in Article 4, Section 10, freedom of choice. And the third principle is moral authority. I'll have to quote this because there's a very important quotation coming from the verses of the Quran, Quranic chapter 24, verse 55. God has promised there among you who believe and perform righteous deeds that he will surely make them vicegerents upon earth, as he caused there before them to be vicegerents, and that he will surely change them from a state of fear, not as a state of fear to one's security. They all worship me, not ascribing any partners unto me, and whosoever disbelieves thereafter, it is as they who are iniquitous. And this moral authority is also very, enshrined in the Bangsamoro Organic Law, actually in two articles. Article 4 with 3 sections, Section 3 on the democratic political system, Section 4 electoral system and civilian government, and also Article 9, Section 11 on the participation of women in the Bangsamoro, as part of what we call, because I'm going to mention the participation of women, the marginalized societies, which is part of the last theorem, which is on social ethics. And of course, we have the fourth theorem, which is common good. Common good in all through universalistic understanding of common good. There's also common good in Christianity, in the theology of every monotheistic traditions. In Islam, we have two scribes of the common good. The maslaha, public welfare, public interest, is Islam. And this is also part of the Bangsamoro Organic Law, Section 3, general welfare. And since it's time's up for me, I'll just wing it, which is the last theorem, which is social ethics. In social ethics, we have four principles: community, ummah, trust, amana, justice, akal, and peace. And this is very important when we speak of also equality. This is very important. Equality in the Quran means realization of equal opportunities of all faithful believers, whether men and women, that their moral and spiritual have the same equal potentialities in the eyes of the transcendence of Allah. And these are also enshrined in many of the articles and sections of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. If you have any questions, we'll try to answer that in the open forum. But thank you for the invitation. My time is up, so we'll proceed to the second speaker.
Thank you so much, Doc, for expounding to us the tenets of the moral governance. At this juncture, let us call Attorney Shai Elijah Dumama Alba.